All right, welcome. What I'm going to talk about has been known and called the holy science for thousands of years. In fact, Egypt is probably the home of the holy science. And what the holy science is the sun being the holiest of the planetary bodies in our solar system, and the OL in the word holy comes from the original name for the sun, Elios. So basically what it is the science of the soul and the stars. The Hindus have been teaching the holy science in Hinduism based on the Yuga cycle of 24,000 years, and I'll read a little portion out of this book about that in a minute. But the book I work mostly out of is Marcus Manilius Astronomica. He was the astronomer and astrologer to Caesar Augustus, and this guy is probably the least read of all those great astrologers and people who taught this, like Ptolemy and the original founders of the science back in Egypt and Babylonia. But Marcus Manilius calls it the holy science. I'll just read the introductory words of his beautiful poem. I will finish with some of the most inspirational words you will ever read out of any poem written by a human, and it will intoxicate you for what they knew about the science of our ascension back to where we came from, which is the ethereal realms. The fifth ether, the quintessence, which Plato discussed at length. But just the introductory words before I continue. You, god of Silene. Silene is Mercury. Okay? You are the first founder of this great and holy science. So it's mercurial. Now, in Egypt, Mercury was Hermes. Okay? So it's hermetic. What you're going to be learning tonight is hermetic. Goes back to Egypt. But the Romans knew it, the Greeks knew it, Plato, Empedocles, Pythagoras knew it. And the beautiful thing I'm going to share with you today is that now we have scientists on board who are teaching it. And Walter Cruttenden, who wrote this book, is the head of the Binary Research Institute in California. Walter Cruttenden is showing how our star system is a binary, and the sister star to our sun is Isis, or Sirius It's the beautiful blue star right here in Canis Major going down right now. It's the brightest star in the sky. Now, he's given a lot of evidence in here that I believe proves that we are in a binary, and the binary star is Sirius. And we go around Sirius every 24,000 years. Now, he has honoured this man, who is Sri Yukteswar, who wrote this book in 1894, by mentioning him in this book and working with the holy science of the Hindu and the Yuga cycle. I would just like to read something in the introduction of this book. It says, we learn from Oriental astronomy that moons revolve around their planets, and planets turning on their axes revolve with their moons round the sun. And the sun, with its planets and their moons, takes some star for its jewel and revolves round it about 24,000 years of our Earth, a celestial phenomenon which causes the backward movement of the equinoctial points around the zodiac. Now, what that means is we live in a cycle, and it's called the Great Year. Now, the Egyptians taught that in order to know who you are, you need to understand the solar system in which you live. The solar system is our macrocosmic atom, and it has magnetic bodies that orbit around it. The core of every atom, macrocosmic atom in the universe, is structured that way. An electric core and magnetic planets that go around it, just much the same as an atom with a nucleus and electrons that encircle the nucleus. Now, what they taught was that you need to understand the three fundamental motions of the solar system. The first motion is, if you have the sun there, the Earth orbits around the sun in an anti-clockwise motion, and it also rotates in an anti-clockwise motion. So that's the day, the rotation every 24 hours, and the orbit is the year. So that's the first fundamental motion, that's the second fundamental motion, and the third one is the great year of 24,000 years. Now, you may have seen that the figure is 25,920. Well, that's the same year, okay? The reason for this figure is because, according to Walter Cruttenden, as our sun orbits around a far distant star called Sirius, that's not a very good, but they're supposed to be perfectly oval like that. It takes 24,000 years for them to go around each other. Now, as they get closer to each other, they speed up. So precession is variable, okay? It's not a fixed figure. You will see that the Hindus insist that it's 24,000 years. But in Egypt, they have this figure, and they're both correct. So, but the point is, and I want to get off this and get straight into what the holy science really is, because I really stress that those three cycles are the cycles that the holy science is based on, because these are the motions of our sun in relation to the Earth. Now, is we all pretty familiar with precession? Yes? No? Okay. So most of the monuments, the megalithic monuments around the world, were designed to align to certain points of precession, because it was very, very important to monitor where we are in the stream of time. For instance, we know that we've been in the age of Pisces for 2,000 years, and now there's a changeover to the age of Aquarius coming. Well, that's because as we go around, as Sri Yukteswar said in the book, as we go around Sirius, we actually go, this is the dark ages, because we are so far away from our sister sun. But as we head toward Sirius, we go to the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, then the Silver Age, and as we are, when our sun gets to this point here and Sirius is at that point there, we will be close to each other, and this is the Golden Age. And the Egyptians and the Hindus agree that this is the age that lasts the longest. And now we are heading back to that time. And what 2012 is all about is simply the fact that we are going through the equinoctial crossing of this particular cycle. And this is how it works. Our Milky Way galaxy is a spiral galaxy. We know that, but we don't see it like that. We see it like a river in the sky. And scientists say that it's about 2 meters long if you have it as a millimeter thick. That's how thin it is. And it's spiraling every 220 million years around. And that fast that it's just, the stars are in a very, very thin river. When we look up, we see it like the Milky Way. And it's not so thin, but it is. And what happens in this particular orbit is that our sun takes us in the to the northern hemisphere of the Milky Way galaxy, and then to the southern hemisphere, and then back again. And it's from here to here is 24,000 years. That's the cycle of precession. And it's 12,000 years in the northern hemisphere and 12,000 years in the southern hemisphere. Yang, yin, positive, negative, electric, magnetic. We are right here. And we have been crossing. If that were the Milky Way equator, we have been crossing that for the last, I think, 15 years. What 2012 is that our sun will be perfectly there, and then it will be more north than south after the 21st of December 2012. So the question is, why aren't our governments preparing the biggest party celebration in history? Because this is beautiful. We're coming to the end of the age.